Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Maxi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, this is the reason why it took so long to able to actually get back into Piglet's big game. So because of that though, speaking of which, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Piglet's big game for the Nintendo GameCube/PlayStation 2. So last time we have basically completed Tigger's Dream, which is by far the longest dream in the entire game, just because of the amount of backtracking you have to deal with and multiple stuff here and there. So today for this video is about the fact that originally we were expecting to able to actually just go ahead and tackle through the final level in the game known as Flooded Woods, or a blustery day or something like that, but ultimately I was going to call it Flooded Woods, just because you know about the fact that after completing 6 dreams, obviously the final level awaits us. So because of that, for this video, we're also able to go back to the previous dreams and tackle for the next challenge.
And so Piglet proved himself the true hero he was by helping his friend. Piglet faced his fears, and he was now no longer frightened of heffalumps and woozles. Now it was their turn to run away, as Piglet tried to catch them all.
Well, as it stands out that we've got to catch them all. So either way though, as you can tell, as far as what the narrator has mentioned this earlier, it's about the fact that we can able to actually go back to the previous streams as we wanted to, as I stated earlier, because as you can see, we actually stumbled across into a new collectible, as you can tell on the left side of the screen, which means we actually come across into those potions. As you probably already know, ever since in Journey forms within the past few parts, in terms of Piglet's big game. So as you can tell, the main emphasis on the forms of this particular challenge, known as Bravest of them all, is about the fact that, as you can tell, for certain areas, for certain dreams, you do need able to scare off the enemies, specifically heffalumps and woozles. Specifically, in the Pooh stream, all we have to do, as you can see on this particular section right there, basically we do need able to chase after the forms of the basic woozles right there, and as soon as you touch them, they'll automatically transforming into potions, and it's your job to able to obtain every single potion in, you know, all the actual segments of the dream. So once you're done with that, you're able to receive a special message, well, assuming of course if you do manage to complete all of the sections in a dream, so that way we're able to actually guarantee about the fact that, well, every time you get into certain areas throughout the dream, basically those about the fact that you stumble across into this message saying Bravest of them all, and then basically those your job to able to capture heffalumps or woozles, and you're able to obtain potions within the time limit. So because of that though, if what happens if you do manage to let the time run out, on the other hand, basically what happens is that certain heffalumps or woozles, depending on what dream you go into, they will automatically disappear. And luckily for you, you can able to try again if you wanted to, just like the forms of how it does it on certain chase challenges within you know what I mean, the moving feather from the likes of an Eeyore's Dream, and especially noticeable with Tigger's Stripes from the likes of in Tigger's Dream. So yeah, you probably get the idea about that. And as far as I'm aware, back in new forms of in 2012 and also 2015, well, despite the fact that those playthroughs are no longer there anymore just because of how bad it was, exponentially speaking though, I have no idea I somehow managed able to ignore that challenge. Well, that's only mainly because I'm only showing you guys the actual story mode throughout the majority of Piglet's big game. But relatively speaking though, now this is now 2023, I finally managed to able to get my chance to able to do a massive request to able to actually do Bravest of them all challenges. Now, as far as I'm aware, we can able to actually just do like, well, still search for some cookies if you potentially miss out on quite a few of those cookies, but as you can tell, in Pooh's dream, there's nothing we need to worry about for all this cookie collecting, because obviously we already got, you know what I mean, all 150 of those cookies in Pooh's dream, because as far as I'm aware, Pooh's dream is by far the easiest dream throughout the whole game, just because all those areas are not as big. But as a result of that kind of stuff though, if you stumble across into Bravest of them all in smaller rooms, it should be a lot easier. But if you stumble across into a large room for that particular Bravest of them all challenge, basically though, that's what the difficulty comes into play. That basically though is about the fact that the hardest part about the forms of Bravest of them all challenge to me though, is that you have to be super strategic. when it comes to likely trying to able to corner certain Heffalumps and certain Woolsels. So because of this though, this is the reason why it took so long to able to actually get back to this game, because as far as I'm aware, it's been about, well, 5 days ago since we've actually last played Piglet's big game. Now I do apologize for that particular weird voice that's been going on, but that's only mainly because I almost swallowed down the wrong hole when I was trying to say something, but I do apologize for that, folks. So either way, a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that is about the fact that, well, today's date is, of course, is the 27th of March today, in this case in 2023 today. We actually got quite a few of discussions where I was able to talk about, but I think I should probably save that conversation until when it gets to the point until the later dreams, as far as Bravest of the Mall challenges, as far as I'm concerned. But either way, though, you probably get the idea of how this is going to represent it with that stuff. And of course, this will be the final time we're going to be seeing that particular sweet-themed dream of the entire game, which is kind of unfortunate because I will admit though, aesthetically speaking, it is a really cool dream to explore to. So as you can see, you are the bravest of the mall message has now popped up, meaning about the fact that you clear out most of those Heffalumps and Woolsels in each area. Now, there are certain areas cannot be able to actually obtain certain potions, like for instance, in the beginning portion of certain dreams, that basically does about the fact that, you know, with the Christopher Robin balloon, as well as the Fonzo Save Game book, basically does about the fact that there's no potions to be found in the beginning portion of these specific dreams. So, yeah, I get the idea about that. And I apologize for that particular ringtone earlier, but that's only mainly because I got the notification representing with Mario Kart Tour. So, speaking of Mario Kart Tour though, is that I'm pretty sure both Mighty and Ray have briefly mentioned about this earlier. I think it was. That basically does about the fact that it's nice to be able to see, you know, dry ruins returned during the forms of Mario Kart Tour, as I stated so many times in the past, although I'll explain more details about that in a moment. But as you can tell, that sense about the fact that we now stumbled across into B Heffalumps once again, so it's been about quite a few parts ago since we actually last stumbled across into B Heffalumps, since, I won't classify for saying since in Tigger's stream basically, so, and I have no idea why the music doesn't seem able to pop up, so yeah, kind of weird and overly anticlimactic right there, where it comes to stumbling across into the lack of music cues. So either way though, that might be saying something, I guess. So anyway, so now we've actually gone for that, and yeah, as I said before, since Journey forms have been the past few videos ago, that yeah, every once in a while the video tends to like, well, not so much the video itself, but the game will occasionally lag a little bit, especially because of, you know, too much enemies on screen. So yeah, that's how about the fact I'm usually going to stick around with it, I guess. Now, someone said in the comments, in the forms of in the last video, that yes, I have managed able to miss out on quite a lot of cookies. Well, not so much in Rouge Stream, because there was actually that one particular shakeable object that I somehow ignored by complete accident. That is, it's in this section, and because of that, something to do with this particular tree might have something to do with that. And I apologize for that particular weird voice earlier, but that's only because I almost belched earlier, so I know it's incredibly gross, but either way. So yeah, it turns out that particular tree right there is the responsible for the final 5 cookies I actually missed in Rouge Dream. And of course, every time any of you grab all the potions in each area and all the cookies in the area as well, you do have the actual auto-saving system. So because of that though, not exactly sure why that's there. Although my guess is about the fact that, well, I think it's mainly because I'm just trying to able to just, well, I think that what happens is about the fact that every time if you complete a dream or something, and then basically if you go back to it, basically though it's about the fact that your auto-saving system is now being in place. So either way though, that might be saying something. So, but again, it's been about 5 days since I actually last played this, as I said before, and it's been like, you know, I would classify for saying 4 days ago since we've actually last, you know, uploaded something on YouTube. So yeah, I'm glad to be back on the forms of YouTube stuff again. So because of that though, and yeah, because as far as I'm aware about the fact I was being busy lately, and on top of all that stuff though, I was just really looking forward to see what's going to be up ahead for the sake of the forms of new content, and you probably named the suggestions by that point. And also, I don't suppose you've noticed, but recently I've actually got myself my new Mii racing suit, which from the looks of it though is actually the Pokey Mii racing suit, and because of that though, I very appreciate the special item they've got for the likes of the Pokey racing suit, which I did recently purchase from the likes of the actual Ruby currency, because I was originally trying to able to go after not only for the sake of the forms of Blue Ninja Shy Guy, but also with the forms of their special character as well. But chances are though, these are stackingly priced for the sake of the forms of trying to utilize the rubies with. So because of that though, so instead I managed able to go myself by another Mii racing suit, but this time with Pokey. So to make it a little bit more fitting, because obviously with Dry Ruins is now a thing in Mario Kart Tour to match the forms of the actual desert environment. So unlike something related to ninja based racers, then it doesn't really fit from the actual for the sake of the forms of the track alone, at least to me anyway. So anyway, so that concludes that particular section right here. So either way, I suppose, speaking of which though, when it comes to Mario Kart Tour itself, that before I get into more details about other contents they've got, for the sake of the forms of, you know, Mario Kart Tour, definitely. Unfortunately though, is that I get the strong sense of feeling, unfortunately though, I don't seem to able to actually get anything for the sake of the forms of that stupid tier system once again. Especially concerning about the fact that currently, for the sake of the forms of the tier system, they obviously got themselves orange version of Shy Guy, so in this case we now have Shy Guy orange color, which sadly I can't seem to get because the stupid tier system has been locked out behind it. And on top of that, there's also the gold variation of Hop Rod. I think it's what it says anyway. It's almost like based off from like a frog-based card. So either way though, that might be saying something when it comes to that. So yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that I can't seem to able to get Orange Shy Guy after all. So yeah, in terms of the forms of the Mario Kart Tour coming up, especially noticeable, they actually predicted the actual the future updates to come. That is about the fact that, relatively speaking, they're also able to include the actual extreme challenges for the sake of the forms of made preparations to add extreme challenges. I think it's to be more specifically, it might be something to do with like, I don't know, more missions to be added around here. So in some cases though, about the fact that, yeah, that could be interesting. And on top of all that stuff though, they also decided able to address unknown issues, or potentially speaking, some other issues that the game has to offer. Like, there are times when changes aren't reflected properly when you change your badges in the friend ranking screen, and there's also the point where your placement in Big Reverse Race versus 100 sometimes displayed on the main screen as your placement for the Big Reverse Race or Reserve Race, as was weird English aside, that basically though is about the fact that, well, I think it's something to do with like bonus challenges or something, but I have no idea. And finally, when you cause an opponent to crash by ramming them while you are in a frenzy during a 2-player challenge, there are times when the item graphic does not display properly in a hit box in the top right of the screen. So yeah, I think that's the only things they're trying to fix. So unfortunately though, still no luck with the forms of the multiple control support, like, you know, with the Nintendo Switch Bluetooth controller. But either way though, it just usually happens in my case as far as I can remember. So either way though, let's just go ahead and move on to Owl's Dream next, in terms of the forms of Bravest of the Mall challenges, as far as you can definitely see on screen. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is one of the points where the game starts to get a bit difficult, at least to me anyway, because there are quite a few times that the time limit is a bit strict in my opinion. Well, apart from the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I will try my best to able to actually capture all those enemies in one go, at least in terms of certain sections. But I do know from the start though is about the fact that in Owl's dream doesn't seem to be that much lengthy in terms of trying to able to, capture certain Heffalumps and Wurzels for that particular Bravest of them all challenges. And that's what happens right there if your time runs out. Basically, all those enemies will be disappeared with a purple smoke, just like the forms of how it does it with that big hideous tree monster, as we've already stumbled across into twice. Oh, and same applies with the forms of the talking door as well. So, relatively speaking, though, in terms of everything else I can probably be able to discuss upon that point, relatively speaking, is that you notice about the fact that they're, well, in terms of certain objects, specifically the Christopher Robin balloon, and on top of that with that little safe game book, basically those two objects no longer has a shiny effect around the circle, which means about the fact that, relatively speaking, you don't need to worry about the forms of a health system or anything else like that until the final level in the game. And basically though is about the fact that, obviously as I said before, it's your job to able to actually just try to able to just, just simply touch the actual Heffalumps and Wurzels, and then basically though, that's how you essentially gonna make them turn into potions, and that's pretty much about it in terms of the forms of how Bravest of them all mechanic do actually work. So either way though, I'm actually really looking forward to doing this though, especially that for the life of me, back in the old days when I used to have the GameCube version, that basically I just simply ignored that particular challenges whatsoever, but that's only mainly because I wasn't really sure of what I was expecting to do at that one point, but then I found out that I somehow managed to pull this off. So either way, yeah, that's about it basically. So there's also another thing I should probably discuss upon this as well, about the fact the matter is though is that, well, I'm quite pleasantly surprised about the fact the matter is though, remember how Sonic has constantly mentioned about during the course of any forms within the Sonic Origins playthrough so far, that basically he always predicted with the forms of Sonic Origins Plus. Well, it turns out that recently, ever since in Journey forms of about 4 days ago, around the same time as when, both Mighty and Ray are both continued things on in Journey forms within the Super Mario All-Stars playthrough in Super Mario Bros. 3, that basically, Sonic Origins Plus has existed. And because of that though, much like the forms of how it does it in Sonic Mania, back in 2017/2018 for its Plus edition, basically though, it's now Sonic Origins' turn to able to actually have, well, for the sake of time, for the actual compilation itself, that basically in Sonic Origins did originally came out in 2022, and now in 2023, there's now the Plus Edition. So, how it works for the Plus Edition for the sake of the forms of Sonic Origins, if you're probably wondering? Well, as far as I'm aware, they do include one new playable character for all 4 games, basically, which is a huge plus. And on top of that, there's going to be multiple games on here, like specifically all 12 Game Gear titles, which is actually kind of a surprise. And on top of that, there's also going to be the forms of, well, obviously the main game itself, alongside with extra content here and there as well, for physical editions only. Well, specifically physical copies of these games. So as a result, though, I think I should probably mention more about it. Until whenever I decide able to actually get onto Eeyore's stream. So because of that, though, well, as far as the forms of, tackling through certain stages for the sake of the forms of Bravest of them all challenges, basically though, I don't think I can probably able to actually tackle through all 6 stages all in one video, I must be honest. But that's only mainly because, as far as you probably already know, that Tigger stream alongside with Rabbit stream are by far the longest streams in the game. But that's only mainly because of the amount of backtracking you have to deal with, and on top of that, certain areas are huge. So, but either way, that takes care of the forms of hide-and-seek Wurzels right here. So, relatively speaking though, I think both Pooh's dream and Owl's dream is pretty easy. Well, apart from one particular exception to this though, as you can probably tell, that the hardest part about this particular dream for me sometimes, in terms of the forms of Bravest of them all challenges, is that, well, we're now going back onto the library room, and because of that though, with all that bookshelves and everything, well, sometimes certain enemies always loves to able to split up, and because of that though, they just think that about the fact that the hardest part about this is that again, it's all about just trying to able to corner them, and the only matters makes things a bit more difficult to me though, is about the fact that the AI can sometimes felt a bit unpredictable at times, especially if you think you're about to able to try to accomplish, trying to able to cornering them, but then chances are though you might as well get screwed over due to the forms of how weird the AI can be sometimes. But when you get the hang of it though, it's actually not too bad. So it might not be, you know, intuitive at times, but either way though, that basically does it for this point right here. So there we go. Now we've actually completed our stream in terms of Bravest of them all challenges, and I believe we actually already into the halfway point. So pretty swell, I'm telling you. Pretty swell. And this is what I mean about the fact that the game gets a bit difficult at times, especially because of the AI pattern that you have to able to cooperate with certain things like that. So, and also I realized that the loading times might still take a bit while to load, whilst unlike the GameCube version, runs a lot more faster, what I've noticed. But anyway, enough about that. So now let's go ahead and move on to the fourth dream, and that's of course Eeyore's dream. Now, since that we've already did manage to able to complete Eeyore's dream, since Journey forms have been I would say the halfway point of March or something like that. That basically though, since that we've already completed that dream, there are some slight changes around here, especially concerning specifically the inside portion of this particular dream. Like for instance, if we go into these rooms over there, then you notice about the fact that whenever you first time you ever play Eeyore's dream for the first time, then you do realize about the fact that we have no color whatsoever with all these rooms. I'm pretty sure we can now able to actually see full color for all of these rooms potentially, but that won't be for a little while because we do need to take care of the forms of course, more Wurzels, specifically hide-and-seek Wurzels that we can potentially try to able to corner them, or generally speaking though, we've obviously captured one already, and there's the last three right here, which for some reason they all gathered up, and because of that though, they somehow let me, well, win this, so huzzah. So anyway, and I should also mention about this as well, is about the fact that, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate for this point today, that sadly though, is that both the Wii U and the 3DS eShop applications are dead. So because of that though, yeah, it looks like it's a final farewell to this beloved eShop applications for the Wii U and the 3DS eShops. So yeah, it seems, you know, still pretty sad to be able to see them go, especially that about the fact that we can no longer get, you know what I mean, with the download exclusive titles for both Wii U and 3DS owners, and on top of that, we must also say goodbye to the DSiWare games forever, especially the only option that is left now is of course emulation or hacked. So because of that though, yeah, it seems kind of sucks to able to see them go. Especially because if you ever dare miss out on the forms of, you know, well, at least luckily, there is still Shantae Risky's Revenge on the forms of their modern platforms now. But potentially speaking though about the fact that, well, for the DSiWare version of that game, it, you know, disappears. And because of that, you can no longer get the original version of the game right now. So, yeah, it seems kind of sucks. And so plus the forms of, you know what I mean, for the majority of Mario vs. Donkey Kong games digitally, including Mini Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge, and because of that though, luckily I still managed able to get those games before the actual closure is about to be begun, so either way though, that might be saying something. So anywho though, and it's also worth noting for when it comes to Sonic fans alike, in terms of the forms of something related to Sonic the Hedgehog stuff, I think I'll let both Mighty and Ray will both mention more about it, until whenever they go back onto the forms of Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario Bros. 3. So, yeah, that might be something more likely a potential thing. So, okay, speaking of related to Sonic the Hedgehog stuff, and that is about the fact that recently, Sonic Frontiers has now got up to 3 million copies sold. So yeah, pretty good stuff, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, again, we'll let both Mighty and Ray will both mention more about it until, you know, when they go back to Super Mario All-Stars again. So yeah, in terms of the forms of Sonic Origins Plus, Obviously I mentioned this before, they obviously do manage to include not only the main game itself, but also they are able to actually start able to do the physical copies of Sonic Origins Plus, similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic Mania with Sonic Mania Plus. So because of that though, relatively speaking, in terms of content they've got, before I get into more details onto that though, here we actually back onto the dining table where everything else is in full color now. So meaning about the fact that you can now able to actually see some reds, some browns, some yellows, or something like that. So either way though, but enough about that specific color distractions because we do need to rely on the time limit while simply catching those, you know, basic Woolsels and also trying to catch the only one mirror Woolsel, as you can tell. But either way though, thankfully we actually done that pretty easily. So either way though, oh yeah, there's actually that one point about the fact that if you ever dare see one of those Heffalumps or Woolsels, well, only a singular enemy on screen, you do realize about the fact that the time itself just goes like very, very fast. So you have to be extremely fast in order able to actually complete that. So, oh, and speaking of time though, for those of you who lived in the UK, obviously recently the time itself just goes forward. So because of that though, since that we're now approaching onto spring, or should I say we're now on springtime, so meaning about the fact that I was really looking forward to see what's going to be up in terms of the forms of next month, and as of course, you know, finally get a chance to able to release, you know, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp at long last after the events of that particular unexpected delay from the likes of the forms of how it does it from last year. So either way though, that chances are though, hopefully we can now able to get the game for reals. So anyway, yeah, in terms of content in Sonic Origins Plus, they obviously contains not only the main game itself, but also with the forms of a previously released DLC ever since in 2022. Like, you can still able to get yourselves the Island Tour character animations, and same applies to the forms of additional content as well. And I believe also same applies to bonus coins as well. So either way though, I'm might as well able to consider it a massive guess. So, and on top of that, they're also including 12 Game Gear Sonic titles, and it's going to be emulated, so don't expect things to be too much of a surprise. Although, it will be good, especially concerning about the fact that the last time, actually, when they last time did the actual Sega Game Gear compilation games, was back in the forms of in Sonic Mega Collection Plus, on the both PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC, but same applies to Sonic Gems Collection as well, and also same applies with Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut. Although speaking of which though, I realized that since we are now in 2023, oh yeah, Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut were expected to become 20 years old this year, so yeah, I'm also able to celebrate that once that turns up. So either way though, yeah, I unfortunately failed this particular room right there, but that's okay, because we might as well be back for it until whenever we take care of the bathroom first. So either way, although, despite the fact that we're now on spring at the moment, unfortunately though, the weather conditions in the UK at the moment is pretty miserable so far. Especially, I don't know if you noticed, but good lord, it's been windy for the last few days. Like, I know for the fact that it's almost like a replicate of the forms of the blustery day or something, or Wednesday, or anything else like that. So, either way though, I have no idea why I bring that up. So, anyway, so there's only one enemy in here, so, but again, with the fastest time kicking, or ticking, rather, when you want to be more specific, and I apologize for that comment take, it's a bit awkward at times, especially because I was gonna able to try to say something, but then I somehow got distracted on other things, so either way, though, I do apologize for that, so... Alright, let's go ahead and do this room for the second attempt, and hopefully with a successful attempt, I'm hoping anyway, if depending on the AI is going to be able to be a little bit unpredictable, especially because the only enemies I found was a little bit of trouble, and that is about the fact that, well, in terms of trying to capturing them, the only enemies I do have a hard time trying to capturing them, that is of course the Woolsels themselves, or specifically, all species in terms of the forms of those Woolsels, because sometimes they felt a bit unpredictable, unlike those Heffalumps, specifically basic Heffalumps. As I said before, they are very easy to catch, especially because, you know, they run slower, and because of that though, you should deal with these no problem. So, Oh boy, now it's gonna be the third attempt for able to do this, so... And what's even more annoying is that sometimes when it comes to the point about the fact that I was expecting that I've somehow managed to clear out all the enemies in journey forms of certain rooms, and if as soon as when the clock starts to able to go in and go red, basically though it's about the fact that they, assuming of course they will make these enemies disappear, instantly, if I somehow manage to grab myself the last potion in that particular room, which can be annoying at times, but either way though, it's pretty tricky to explain. So either way, Eeyore's dream is being completely done. You are the bravest of them all, for the 4th time. So either way, I think we should probably do one more dream as it is, because obviously about the fact that, as I said before, both Rabbit's dream and Tigger's dream are going to be one of the longest dreams of the bunch, because obviously of how big it was. And on top of all that stuff though is about the fact that, well, relatively speaking though, is that you actually gonna go quite slow most of the time. So either way though, and straight to the point about the fact that since we're now moving on to Rabbit's dreams able to go back into, and something tells me that about the fact that I was off by 25 cookies left. So because of that though, but again, thank you someone out there in the comment section that basically does about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I appreciate about the forms of the guides of where certain cookies are located. So, but I do know for one thing is that I believe the final 5 cookies are definitely in the cave section, for sure, and the rest of them is going to be on the beanstalk section because, well, yeah, that's as far as I can say. So, anyway, so yeah, in terms of content they've got for Sonic Origins Plus, as far as for my continuing discussion on it, obviously as I said before, that though 12 Game Gear games are going to be on the museum mode, and they're all going to be emulated, so they won't be too surprised about this point. Well, potentially speaking though, what's even great about this is that now the Nintendo Switch now has the ability to able to have Game Gear titles on Sonic Origins Plus, which is also really swell. And no matter what though, there's also a new playable character by the forms of Classic Amy. So yeah, you can now finally play as Classic Amy. I think technically the last time we able to actually play as Classic Amy was technically Sonic the Fighters, despite the fact that it's a fighting game. But in terms of platforming games, this is actually the first time we're going to be finally get a chance to take control of Classic Amy. From not only you can able to play as her in Sonic 1, but also with Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and even Sonic CD. So yeah, pretty cool to able to actually have her as a playable character in 4 of those games. And finally, most notably, is that Knuckles is now going to be finally become a playable character in Sonic CD. So yeah, pretty cool to now able to actually have a Red Echidna for able to actually participating for, you know, travel through time for the sake of the forms of past, present, and future. And on top of that, well, it might be pretty interesting to see him in action in terms of Sonic CD special stages, because obviously Sonic CD special stages are entirely in 3D, so it will be pretty interesting to see how that's going to be represented with. So, and also it'll be pretty cool to able to see him race against with Metal Sonic in Stardust Speedway, and also say applies with the forms of trying to climb into certain things like walls and all that stuff. So yeah, I can totally see why that you can no longer get Sonic CD on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, alongside with PC Steam as well. Specifically the 2011 remastered version of the game now, but that's only mainly because, well, relatively speaking, I'm pretty sure it's been like, you know, 10 years or something like that, that particular remastered version of Sonic CD did came out originally. Now, of course, it's been like almost a year ago since when those games have been delisted, thanks to the forms of Sonic Origins to somehow take over. So, anyway, and as far as the forms of physical stuff as far as I'm concerned, well, it did say for brackets, did say physical exclusive. Not only does it contain reversible cover sheets with new, never before seen art. Now, for what I've seen, it's actually by the forms of a montage of a similar concept as the forms of how it does it in Sonic Mania, that basically you get yourselves a Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive cover for it, which is actually pretty swell. And on top of that, what's even cooler is that Tails, the actual artwork of Tails, or specifically Classic Tails more like, basically though, he actually holds himself a actual Game Gear, which, get it, because obviously only able to include Game Gear titles in this entire compilation. So because of that, pretty cool and awesome, actually. And finally, most notably, is that they obviously will include the 20-page art book. So, yeah, pretty cool, huh? And relatively speaking, in terms of the Game Gear games though, this is actually going to be the first time ever for the Xbox Microsoft system. They'll finally get a chance to... Oh wait, technically speaking, they already did that, didn't they? Oh yeah, because of the forms of Sonic Mega Collection Plus. So, I honestly forgot about that, honestly. But in terms of the forms of, like, specifically, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Spinball on Game Gear, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Drift 2, Tails Sky Patrol, and Tails Adventure, they are now finally coming to the Xbox system, because as far as I'm aware, the other half of the game selections are already in Sonic Mega Collection Plus. So speaking of which though, all 12 of those Sonic games are going to be included in a Plus edition of Sonic Origins, which there are, obviously Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Chaos, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and there's also Sonic Spinball, Sonic Drift 1, Sonic Drift 2, Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble, and also, I would say, by the forms of Tails Sky Patrol and Tails Adventure, Sonic Lapwith, strangely enough, and finally Sonic Blast. So either way though, pretty jarring to able to see Sonic Blast make a comeback. Although I totally see why about the fact that those Game Gear games are now being moved over to the next generation of consoles, or technically speaking, within not only the PlayStation 4, but also PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and PC Steam, and of course the Nintendo Switch. But that's only mainly because, in terms of the 3DS eShop, as I said before, that the eShop application for the 3DS is dead now. So this means you can no longer get the Game Gear Sonic titles on the Nintendo 3DS systems, alongside with the forms of the digital versions of certain Sonic games, specifically Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal, and especially noticeable with Sonic Lost World for both not only on the Wii U, but also on the 3DS as well, and also Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transforms for the Wii U and 3DS as well, and also Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Winter Games and Rio 2016 Olympic Games, both on the Wii U and 3DS. So I suppose the only option is for you, if you potentially miss out on those digitally, is that you have to find the physical copies of these games. So, despite how pricey these games are nowadays. So, anyway, so yeah, it seems pretty cool to be able to actually have that in here. And I suppose, potentially speaking, in terms of the release date, for the sake of the forms of Sonic Origins Plus, I think the release date for it is going to be releasing during the 32nd birthday for the sake of Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's also going to be roughly exactly the same time as in 1 year anniversary of the release of Sonic Origins itself. So because of that, it's going to be releasing until June 23rd in 2023, within double 23s, well, aside from the month. So either way though, yeah, pretty cool, and I'm really looking forward to able to gain a physical copy of the game, well, potentially speaking for its collector's sake. Now, as far as the forms of getting the thing digitally, well, there's actually a cheaper price for it, potentially, so because of this, though, I might try to get the digital DLC for it, well, potentially speaking for its expansion pack, but either way, though, we shall see what happens in due time, especially concerning about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, I'm just so looking forward to able to actually just to, like, replaying through, you know, Game Gear Sonic games on a go with the Nintendo Switch. So thankfully I don't need to rely on the forms of play on my Game Gear for the time being, but aside from the fact that I always become a little bit more collectible when it comes to likely for its game handhelds or anything else to be more specific, aside from the fact that my Game Gear is struggling to able to get not only the screen popped up, but also with the sound issues, with all that, the compactor or anything else like that. So, and also I just realized I finally managed to found certain cookies in the beanstalk section, because something tells me for those fences right there, usually becomes a little bit more of a shakeable. So because of that though, I almost first thought that those vegetables might have something to do with it, but it turns out it doesn't. So either way, thank God I managed to able to find that, so thank you someone in the comments to able to actually point things out to me, so I appreciate it. So because of that though, yeah, that basically does it for all those cookies in the forms of Rabbit's Dream. So all it needs left now is this Tigger's Dream, and as far as I'm aware, when it comes to the cookie count, for the sake of Tigger's Dream, I seem to be missing a lot of it. So because I just got distracted by not only certain heffalumps, but also with certain Wurzels as well. So because of that. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below for the question of the day. Are you guys looking forward to Sonic Origins Plus? Because surely I am. Especially because I'm a die-hard Sonic fan. Especially I always enjoy, you know, the classic Sonic games. Because honestly, out of all the actual series, when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog, I always attempt to enjoy the classic series a lot. That's only mainly because it has a lot of replayability. You can able to mess around with, like, not only with level selection or level select screen, and same applies with debug mode as well if you want to able to mess around with the forms of the game itself. And on top of all that stuff though, with Sonic 3 and Knuckles is now finally included to be on the forms of Sonic Origins, which makes it a double day great worth it in my opinion. Well, despite the fact that the price tag back in the day is a bit too much. So either way, so I get the strong sense of feeling we've only got about 4 sections left for the Bravest of them all challenge for Rabbit's Dream, and something tells me I need to restart it because I think that particular Wurzel just somehow managed able to just, well, keeps on making me spinning me around and all that stuff, which I found a little bit weird to noticing this. So, oh well, no big deal. But at least we can able to keep trying at the very least. So I suppose another thing I should probably explain about this as well is that one of those episodes, specifically the SpongeBob SquarePants TV series, that basically though, one of those episodes in particular, which is essentially SpongeBob SquarePants Lost Episode, or specifically in brackets, the Sponge Who Could Fly. Basically that episode has been out for 20 years now, since in 2003. Gee, it's been 20 years or so. And speaking of anniversary related things, happy 10th anniversary of the film's release of The Croods, despite the fact that I've never actually seen that film before. Although what I do know is about the fact that The Croods is actually going to be a part of the collaboration of not only for DreamWorks, but also with 20th Century Fox as well, which that was when after the Rise of the Guardians do manage to able have a collaboration with not only with DreamWorks, but also with Paramount Pictures, and then, yeah, that's sure it's something. Well, despite the fact that, like I said before, I've never actually really into The Croods as much, compared to the forms of how it does it on some DreamWorks movies recently. I know for a fact that for one thing in mind, the only thing that's kind of bugging me for this point today, in terms of Netflix, as far as you're probably already aware, that for the love of God, Netflix once again removed Ants again. Like, seriously, this is getting ridiculous with all that limited time offering, so it seems pretty ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous though, is about the fact, as I mentioned this earlier, is about the fact that not only you can no longer get the majority of the digital exclusive Sonic games on the 3DS and the Wii U, but also about the fact the matter is though with saying goodbye to certain DLC stuff as well. Like, we'll say goodbye to, you know, the new Super Mario Bros. 2 DLC, and say applies with Mario Golf World Tour, and also say applies with Fire Emblem Warriors on the new 3DS version most likely, while you still can able to actually get DLC stuff for Fire Emblem Warriors on the Nintendo Switch version, and also say goodbye to the DLC stuff for the Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 3DS and Wii U, which is pretty sad. And on top of that, we might also have to say goodbye to the forms of the actual DLC content for Sonic Lost World on the Wii U, meaning that you can no longer get Yoshi's Island Zone and The Legend of Zelda Zone, unless if you do manage to able to do some modding community for the sake of the forms of the PC version of Sonic Lost World, if it's possible. Well, I can assure you that everyone else has already done that already. Well, specifically in Yoshi's Island Zone. So either way, now, I suppose the last thing I want to mention though is that speaking of related to Mario Kart, that I can definitely know right from the start though, that as far as I'm aware we've only got about 16 tracks left, and someone said on the forms of one of those data mines or something like that, I believe they did suggest about the fact that one of those tracks will be coming. Well, as far as I'm aware for that estimation, or specifically for some speculations at the moment, they did say they will bring one more Super Mario Kart track, and they'll bring one more Mario Kart Super Circuit track, and also they'll bring 3 more Mario Kart Double Dash tracks, and also they'll bring 2 Mario Kart Wii tracks left, and 5 more Mario Kart Tour tracks, like city-based tracks, and finally new or Nitro tracks, like 4 of them left. So because of that, unfortunately though, none of those Mario Kart 64 tracks were going to be returning for the sake of time, because I know for a fact that the last returning track from Mario Kart 64 was actually Karimari Desert, as far as I'm aware. So either way, it's kind of a shame that Wario Stadium is not going to be on there. Well, I'm guessing it's probably because the track is so long as it is. So because of that, and in terms of the defaults of Mario Kart DS though, I don't think we can probably able to get Airship Fortress, unfortunately. And same applies with DK Pass, or potentially speaking Luigi's Mansion as well, which is a bit of a shame, honestly, because I would love to able to see those in HD, but unfortunately though, it doesn't seem the case, sadly. So either way though, oh, and on top of that, there's no new Mario Kart 7 tracks will be returning either. So because of that, I know for one thing that the last one they have returning is of course Rainbow Road, which it obviously makes it a perfect way to able to have that on there, because obviously Mario Kart 7 Rainbow Road is by far my favorite Rainbow Road in the entire series, at least in my opinion. So yeah, unfortunately though, I don't think we can probably able to get a chance to see Bowser's Castle based off of Mario Kart 7, and same applies with the forms of Rosalina's Ice World, and also same applies with Wario's Shipyard, and I believe same applies with the forms of, I would classify for saying, Mario Circuit, and also with Daisy Hills, and also Cheap Cheap Lagoon, and finally Shy Guy Bazaar. So either way though, yeah, it seems kind of sad able to not have included those tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Maybe potentially that some people say they might add some more in the future, but then again though, it's just all about speculations at the moment. So there we go, folks. Rapid's dream has been completed, and we've only got one more dream to go in terms of Bravest of them all challenges. So with that being said, we got the endings off here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Piglet's Big Game. Is that not only do we have to go back to Tika's stream to find the last few cookies, but also do Bravest of them all challenges. And also we're about to be doing the final stage in the game, Flooded Woods. So I'll see you guys until on Wednesday. Later, fellas.